I want to show some of the primordial essences of this Isis who's lactating Horus. This all has to do with hip-hop still. You get the Coptic depiction. Y'all see that? The Coptic depiction where Jesus Christ, so-called, we had this mythology. Jesus Christ was our actual mythology. This has nothing to do with white folks. They took it and made you think he existed. This is mythology that I'm talking about, and I'm going to tie all of this in. You know, this is Mary. You know, this is the classic Mary, or your Celtic or Templar Rosicrucian, you know, Moorish mythology, and you still see, you know, the Christ getting suckled. This is Isis, you know, still suckling on the breast of, Horus suckling on the breast of Isis. And I'm going to read something really quick that's going to show you something as far as dealing with the blood, because in dealing with the water element, it's compatible with the blood. There's 90% of the body is made of water, which is the actual blood that we actually interface with, that carries information to and fro different organs, so we can go up into our brains and create this so-called music. Now, this passage that I'm about to read, I took it from a book by Lawrence Gardner called The Grail Mysteries. The Grail Mysteries, and in that book, that's a short name for it. I forgot the title of the book, but it's called, what's it called? Lawrence Gardner, but it's The Grail Mysteries, and it goes into what the Holy Grail actually is, how it interfaces with us. It goes into the whole Mary Magdalene thing and all of that. But I'm going to read this, and it goes like this. With the concept to the fore, the logic of Hathor, who is an Egyptian goddess, you could cross-reference her with Ishtar if you want. So I'm going to say Ishtar, associated with the Cerebit temple, becomes clear. For she was herself regarded as the life-giver. To the Egyptians, Hathor was representative of the Babylonian goddess Ishtar and had attributes of a nursing mother similar to those of Isis, nursing through the breast. The great mother. Hathor was defined as queen of the west and the mistress of the netherworld, the underworld. This is the realm of, the underworld gods who we contact when we get twisted, or, we start communicating with our higher selves. Now, to where she was said to carry those who knew the right spells. She was revered as the protectress of womanhood, the lady of the sycamore, the lady of turquoise, the goddess of love, tunes, and song. It was from the milk of Hathor that the pharaohs were reckoned to gain their divinity, becoming gods in their own right. So, literally, the breast milk is what they're talking about. The breast milk of Isis or Ishtar is what gave us our divinity. Now, to go on, they said they were said to feed on the milk of Hathor just as the Babylonian kings had fed on the milk of Ishtar. It would appear that since natural mother's milk contains the enzyme telomerase. Now, telomerase is another word for melanin. Lawrence Gardner just disguised it and basically came up with a scientific term for what he couldn't explain. So they're always talking about DNA. We call it melanin. In essence, so it says that it would appear that since natural mother's milk contains the enzyme telomerase, the recently stylized enzyme of immortality, they call it mufkuts in the Bible. This is the manna that Moses so-called gave to the people when he came down from the mountain. This is the sacred bread of life. This is the actual, the Eucharist that you eat in the so-called church. There ain't no bread that you eat. That's cannibalism. We're talking about the sacred elixir, the melanin inside of your brain. Now, the mufkuts must somehow have enhanced the production of this enzyme. Indeed, modern scientists have now described telomerase as being the fountain of youth. We studied melanin. We know that the fountain of youth is something that is inside us. But pay attention, this is where it gets deep. As reported in the journals in the journal Science, along with reports from corporate studies of those of the University of Texas Southern Western Medical Center, it has been determined that telomerase has unique anti-aging properties. Healthy body cells are programmed to divide many times over a lifetime, but the process of division and replication is finite, meaning DNA can replicate over and over and over and over, but meaning it could come to a stop. It could wear out. And it is finite so that a non-dividing state is ultimately achieved. The division potential is controlled by caps at the end of DNA strands, rather like plastic tips on shoelaces. And these caps are called the telomerase. So basically, It's like when you got your sneakers and you lace them up, you know, back and forth. And, you know, as a little kid, you don't tie your shoes. Some of us didn't know how to tie shoes. So you're just walking around. And those little plastic tips at the end of your shoelaces wear out. So you can't, you know, if your shoes get untied, you can't put it through that hole anymore. So your DNA stops replicating. When that happens in our body, that's when we start to age. We get old. We start wrinkling. We get disease. By contacting the telomerase, your DNA can bathe in this so-called water, and you cease to age. You defy the laws of time. This is who we are. The white boy can't do this. See, the twisted language takes you there. This is why I talked about all the technical aspects of who we are, because hip-hop is the weapon to take us into this. And I'm showing you the actual hieroglyphs. I'm not saying this for no reason. I've done the research, and I've cut and paste in that particular fashion all this information to drive it home. That's why we had to deal with the technical stuff.
You need to work on the lecture on your own, man.
Check,
need to, brother.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, son Evan. As each cell divides, a piece of telomerase is lost. This is the aging process. And the dividing process ceases when the telomerase have shortened to an optimal and critical length. There is now no cell replication, and all that follows is deterioration and aging. As I explained, aging begins. So now we're starting to get a better understanding of what our DNA is. They didn't teach us this in school. They basically told us that it's the 10%, that's all it does. DNA is the warehouse for information. So what? How do I interface with it? You see what I'm saying? This is very simple when we read. It's out here. We gave it to the cracker because we were going to forget. And here we are fulfilling the prophecy of being able to tap into what runs through these veins, the element of water. Let's further read on. Laboratory experiments with the tissue samples have shown that the application of the genetic enzyme telomerase. See, the telomeres are the shoelaces. There's telomeres, which is your DNA, and then there's telomerase, which is your melanin. Now, it says that the application of the genetic enzyme telomerase can prevent the shortening of the telomeres upon the cell division and replication. Therefore, body cells can continue to divide far beyond their natural restricted programming, just as do cancer cells, which achieve immortality through being rich in this substance. They're telling you cancer's a hoax. When you become rich in this substance, there's no such thing as cancer. Cancer is basically a disease state. When you eat messed up foods, you're eating the KFC, eating whatever, this is how, you know, the plastic tips at the end of your shoelaces, they become depleted. And therefore, you know, you can't gain access to the realm of the underworld, the telomerase. Now, telomerase is not usually expressed in normal body tissue, but apart from being present in malignant tumors, it is also apparent in mature males and developing females. Why? Because maturing males secrete testosterone. That's when you start coming into your puberty, and females have that estrogen. Mature females, when you actually ovulate, dealing with the lunar cycles, dealing with the masculine aspect, we're dealing with the laws of polarity. They're talking about the alchemical properties of the body here. So it's present inside of us is what they're saying. And it's a hormonal function. It's a sexual function. This is what sexual healing was all about. You can heal yourself. The DNA is really us. It's the whole physical body. My testicles, her ovaries. There's polarities here. And as I stated earlier, the DNA is deliberately delivered that way. In the corner of the third dimension, you have polarities. And that is how we came. This is the fallen state. This is the experience. So we split into two. So my purpose, the truest purpose on earth is why I'm here. Why I'm here. Everybody said, what's my purpose? To become a doctor, to become a lawyer. Bullshit. Bullshit. Your purpose is for this. So rather than become a lawyer who's talking about frivolous things, why not tap into the science of Maya, the true scales of balance, and how to have dominion over the universe, rather than be like Judge Judy, being some feminist up there who is you know, getting bossy on a particular people out there, and just, you know, a lot of black people she yells at, you know what I'm saying? What type of dominion do you have with the universe when all you're perpetuating is ego? That's not a judge. A judge is one who can manipulate the elements, as we're talking about here today. So, in further going on, it seems presumably that somewhere, telomerase is not usually expressed in normal body tissue, but apart from being present in malignant tumors, it is also apparent in mature male and developing female reproductive cells. It seems that somewhere within our DNA structure, in what is commonly termed junk DNA, as I expressed, the language that they don't understand, is the genetic ability to produce this anti-aging enzyme, the telomerase, but the potential has somehow been switched off. Forgot. That's all that happened. He's saying that it's inside of us. Somehow it's been switched off. Now, it's somehow been switched off. As mentioned by Robert F. Newbold, of the Department of Biology and Biochemistry at London Brunel University says that isolation of this gene will enable its fine structure and integrity to be determined in a wide variety of human malignancies, and therefore its role as an important target for inactivation in human cancer development to be established. Basically, they're talking about studying the melanin, and therefore by studying it, they'll be able to locate it. This is what the Human Genome Project has been about. This is what the white boy has been doing all this time, trying to locate it in our body. But you can't extract it to do nothing with it. You have to activate it from within. You can't, we have it inside. So they're trying to study it. But you can't study melanin now, because when you study melanin now, tomorrow it changes into something new. That's the chaos. So don't try to quantify me into, what time is it? 6:30, 7:30 on December, what's today's date? It's 27th. Don't try to, say this is who Rich is, because when you think hip-hop was this today, I'm taking the shit somewhere else. So this is what the scientists are trying to do. It says that it has already been suggested by scientists that if telomeres can afford immortality to malignant tumors, then its introduction into normal cells could well have the effect of extending lifespan. Come on. That's why you used to go into this places on this earth right now, up in the mountainous regions where people are 100, 200, 300 years old. You don't hear about these things though. But this so-called, 30-something, 40-something, I have an uncle. This is why I have to apologize to y'all, because this lecture was postponed for a long time. We were supposed to have done this a long time ago, but the reason why I say this, I have an uncle who developed, he had a stroke. And, I'm in the house all the time, and he sees me altering my diet and doing different things, and they laugh at me. But I have to keep it real. He was further stimulation for me to stay on my grind, seeing him in this particular state. And sometimes life teaches you hard lessons in that way, where they take away the close ones to you. But we got to become strong where you're no longer affected by it. So this is what I mean. Like when you see close people next to you going to this, don't become, sorry for yourself and start, feeling fear and feeling like you're losing something. They're basically going to the underworld to communicate to you. So right now, my uncle is currently in a state of, he's in a coma, and when I go see him, he ain't gone. He just transcended to the underworld to have me further aligned with myself. That's what it really is. And this is how we have to start to interface with loss, because this is what your DNA teaches you, to stay focused, to stay on the frequency, as we say. Now, numerous genetic researchers have agreed that the ability to extend cellular lifespan while maintaining the diploid status growth characteristics and gene expression pattern typical of young normal cells has important implications for biological research, for the pharmaceutical industry, and for medicine. Now that's the cracker trying to make money off of us. Trying to, basically in our DNA, he could create cures, and he's trying to bottle the shit up and pump it out there. Just like white folks get cancer, they create melanoma skin creams and things of that nature. You see what I'm saying? Now, it goes into saying that for all of this, it can be justifiably assumed that the mufkuts that I talk about, this is the same bread of life that we're talking about, is to live up to, if it's to live up to its expectations as determined by the Egyptian records, then it could be capable of having anti-aging, anti-cancerous attributes, and the ability to combat cell deformation by repairing malformed DNA strands. You can actually regenerate. So for those of us, if we are particularly diseased at this particular time, don't think the miracle hasn't happened yet. Because when you hear about so-called Christ walking on water, it's talking about you. If you have certain organs or you have a particular disease that is on the planet, by tapping in and meditating on what we're going to get into, the meditation of certain sigils and tapping in, you can actually regenerate. Just like you cut a worm in half, you can actually grow back to those two. That single worm will become two worms. That's the snakes we talking about that I drew over there, the DNA. You can regenerate. You see what I'm saying? Like when you used to watch, what's the thing? The thing, that animal, the green, what's the thing called? What's that?
Man thing.
Not the whole man thing. Swamp thing.
Swamp thing.
We used to cut the swamp things off, he used to grow back. It's talking about you. It's talking about you, where we're actually going. 2012, as we're mutating and becoming mutants, we're going to have these particular powers. Let's not get it twisted.